हेलो आ रहे हैं ना सर
वहाँ पे कमिंग सून लिख दीजिएगा, हो सके तो कमिंग सून तो अच्छा रहेगा। बच्चा देखेगा ना बोर्ड पे कमिंग सून लिख दीजिए वहाँ पे।
कम लिखें?
कमिंग सून।
अच्छा इस पे लिख दें?
हाँ हाँ
लिखो लिखो चाहे लिख दो, कैपिटल वाले में लिख दें।
तो मैंने कहा दिख रहा है? स्टॉप करना है भाई, मत कर देना एंड में लाइव स्ट्रीम चल रहेंगे। पता नहीं कुछ करना है नहीं, परमिशन दे दिया। फाइव मिनट लेफ्ट,
लेफ्ट
5 मिनट लेफ्ट।
लेफ्ट
हाँ
हाँ ठीक है।
क्योंकि उसमें डेमो में देना होता है ना, तो पता चल जाता है।
उसका कौन वहाँ पे
No.
राम इधर आ पानी थोड़ा सा दे दो वो पी लूँ और तुम यहाँ पे बैठ जाओ तो उठ के जाना टाइम नहीं है भाई आ जाओ उसको कर लाओ कर रहे हैं चलो यहाँ से क्या करना है यहाँ से सिर्फ क्या दबाना है
कुछ नहीं दबाना आप बोलिए लाइव स्ट्रीम अपने आप में ऑफ हो जाएगा इसका मतलब नंबर कट कर दीजिएगा रेडी है लाइव स्ट्रीम रेडी बोर्ड दिख रहा है कमिंग सून आपको बोलना है ऐसे
यहाँ पे कर दो ये अभी मैं जा रहा हूँ तो ये आवाज़ भी आ रही है
हाँ नहीं का है कोई दिक्कत नहीं इतना चलता है
तो क्या करना है आपसे ओबीएस चालू करना पड़ेगा
एकदम फाइन
वो है सब कुछ
माइक पे बैठना है
आप माइक लगाओ
मॉनिटर करना है आपके आगे
आ रहा है आ रहा है
Shall we begin? So, welcome all the students. Today we are going to begin our polity live classes, which will cover all the aspects of Indian polity, which will be necessary for you to understand and go deeper into the concepts of Indian polity for your UPSC preparation. And we will start with the very basic thing, which is nothing more than the preamble of the Constitution. This is the most important element through which we can understand our constitution, the nature of our constitution, the nature of the Indian state, the core constitutional values which we have, around which all the other laws are based. Constitution is basically the organic law of the land. Try and understand when I say organic law of the land. When something is organic, it keeps growing with time. Some of the element are replaced by other element with time as the society progresses, as society moves towards more liberty, more freeness. It's all about how open our minds and hearts are becoming. That is also reflected in the constitution through various interpretations of the law made by the Supreme Court, or also by several legislatures which have been brought by the Parliament. For example, right to privacy, which was a recent judgment, tells a lot about the organic character of the constitution. Right to privacy, which is given to the Indian constitution by a judgment of the Supreme Court, where 9-judge bench said that right to privacy is a fundamental right. Now, it is not explicitly written in our fundamental rights, but if you see under Article 21, life and liberty, this right has also been added. What does it tell? It tells that our constitution is not rigid. Something which was written during the time when it was being framed is not the only thing, but with time we are willing to change ourselves. But this change, whatever the change which is going to come up, must not be such that it infringes any of the core constitutional values of our constitution. Which part of the constitution mentions the core constitutional value? It is the preamble. So, preamble basically is the identity card of the constitution, as said by several constitutional and political philosophers. When we say identity card, so what does an identity card has? If let us say you are walking on the road and you find somebody's ID card lying over there, you will come to know so many things about the person. You will come to know the person's name. You will come to know the organization from which that person belongs. You will also come to know which post does the person holds in that particular organization. Some of them also contains the blood group. So, it gives the basic information about a person, also the address of the organization, where is this organization situated. So, if you are willing to return that card to the person, sometimes phone number also. So, if you are willing to return that card to the person which you have found on the road, you have so many means. You can either call the person, or if phone number is not giving, you can send it on the address, or personally you can deliver the card on the address so that the person finds it. So, the idea of telling you what contains in an ID card is that these are the basic information about a person which tells so much for you to understand what kind of work he is doing or she is doing, what is his name. And you know, in India we have the concept of name and then surname. So, if you want to know the caste of the person, just by looking at the surname you can know. The religion of the person, just by looking at the name you would know. So, it gives the basic idea of a person, what the person is, from where he belongs, from which caste or which religion he belongs, or which organization the person is working, what post he is holding. Is he an important person? Just by looking at the post you can tell. That can be the card of a clerk or card of the CEO of the company. So, an ID card, identity card, tells you so many things about an individual. So, why not the ID card of the constitution can be so informative about the constitution. So what does the preamble contains? Preamble contains several things such as the source of power. It tells about the source of power, the legal power. When I say it is the organic law of the land, basically it's a law and everybody has to work according to the law in the country, and if you infringe it, there are punishments. If you infringe it, there can be punishment. Okay, so basically it's a law. So from where it is driving the legal authority? So when we say that preamble is the identity card of the constitution, the first thing which we have to look into it is the source of power, from where the preamble is drawing, or from where the constitution is drawing the source of power. This is number one, which is mentioned in the preamble. Second thing which the preamble mentions is the nature of the state. Now what is this nature of a state? Is it a democratic state or is it a theocracy? You know what theocracy means? A state which has some religion as its official religion. Does India have any official religion? No, India is secular. That means all the religion in India are given same respect and are protected equally. State does not promote any one single religion. So this tells about the nature of the country, nature of the constitution, which is very well secular. Is it socialist? Is it republic? Or it is monarchical? Like Britain, Great Britain is a monarchical democracy where the head of the state is the hereditary king, but in India it's a republic. Every 5 years we have elections where we choose our government, which in turn choose the president of the country. So India is a republic. So the nature of the state is the another kind of information which is given in the preamble of the country. Third thing you will come to know are the core constitutional values. Core constitutional values. What can be the values for which we have made the constitution, and why are the constitution made at first place? Can't we just have the governance in the country? But to limit the greed of power of human beings, we need some sort of law, some confinement and some limitation under which those human beings who are on the posts of power has to work, so that there shall not be any control or arbitrariness. That is why we elect our members of parliament or the members of legislative assembly. We elect our governments just to ensure that if they do not do what we desire them to do, we are going to change them in the next election. Whatever law they are making has to be limited and confined. The whole idea of constitutionalism is nothing but limited government, and when we call it a limited government, it says that absence of any control or arbitrariness on the part of the government. It has to have some sort of value, some sort of limitation, and those values have been defined in preamble very elaborately under the heading core constitutional value. It does not have any heading to it, but this is how we are going to break it down. So the core constitutional values can be equality, liberty, fraternity, justice, tells you about this. Fourth, the date of enactment. If you see the preamble of the Constitution of India, you will see one date prescribed on the 6th of November 1949. What is that date? That date is the date of enactment on the day on which the people of India has enacted and has given to themselves the constitution. It was enforced on 26th of January 1950, the following year, but it was enacted. Means, what does the word enactment means? Means something which is passed as a law. So, the law was made, the constitution was adopted as a law, the organic law, the biggest law, the foundational law of the land on the 26th of November 1949. So, it tells about the date. Fifth thing, it tells about the duty. Duty Indian citizens have to maintain the unity and integrity of the nation, to maintain secularism. This is how we have to interpret the constitution. You see? So, that little page, one page with only so many words that a person can read them in less than 15 seconds, contains this much knowledge about the Constitution of India, and it also has the power, this preamble, when the organs of the state, executive, judiciary, parliament, they have been given their own work. Parliament makes law. So, when parliament is making law, it has to keep in mind the core constitutional value, the nature of the state. The parliament cannot make any law which is against the nature of the state. If it starts to make some law which says that India is not a secular state, then it can be struck down by the Supreme Court. Supreme Court has also declared preamble in several interpretations as the basic structure of the constitution. So, the core constitutional values are very important here, and it is important to know that judiciary, when it is interpreting the laws, have to keep in mind the core constitutional value. Any kind of interpretation must not be done which abridges or infringes the core constitutional values mentioned in preamble: liberty, equality, fraternity and justice. To uphold the justice, it is very important that Supreme Court works in confinement of the preamble and its core constitutional value. Same is with the executive. When it is working, they have to follow the core constitutional values of justice. On their discretion, they cannot act in such a way that they forget the principle of equality, which is so broadly mentioned in our constitution, reflected everywhere from directive principles to the fundamental rights. So, in their discretion or whenever they are working according to the law, whichever be the case, they must not infringe or abridge the core constitutional values, and it must not be done in such a way that it goes against the nature of the Indian state. It is important to understand that all the organs of the government has to work according to law. Which law? Constitution, which is the organic law of the land. We have already studied why is it organic, because it can change its shape, it can, some provisions can be added, some provisions can be deleted as the society progresses. It is not set principle, but you know, it is not fixed, but it is organic, can change its size, way, shape, sometimes nature also, but those core nature, the core constitutional values remain same, because they are as old as hills. Liberty, equality, fraternity, brotherhood, in which era of history was fraternity a wrong concept? It was never a wrong concept. When you talk about secularism, in which era of history anywhere in the world was secularism a bad concept? So, several concepts has been provided in the constitution which are very core to the evolution of human beings, the evolution of the human consciousness, for human beings to reach the maximum level or the optimum potential, and those values must not be infringed or abridged by either of these organs, the executive, the judiciary and the parliament. So, preamble, is it the part of the constitution? This was a debate which keeps coming, since it does not have, it's not justiciable. What does the word justiciable means here? That it cannot, the values given in it cannot be enforced by law. Somebody cannot approach the court and say, since it is mentioned in the preamble, you enforce it. Same with the fundamental duties and same with the directive principle of state policies. Fundamental rights are justiciable. If any of your fundamental rights are infringed, you can go to the court of law and ask the state to ensure the enforcement of those rights for the individual. But such a thing cannot be done with directive principles or cannot be done with preamble. It is not justiciable, but nevertheless it is the basic feature of the constitution. That simply means it cannot be infringed. So, is it the part of the constitution? Supreme Court have said that it is very well the integral part of the constitution. Now, why I keep mentioning Supreme Court has said this or Supreme Court has said that? Once a constitution was made, was enacted and was enforced, who is the person, I should not call it a person, but which is the organization or which is the organ of the government which keeps the constitution intact, which protects the fundamental rights of the constitution? It is the Supreme Court. It is the court whose foundational value is justice. It provides justice to all. So, that is why I keep mentioning that in the Supreme Court's interpretation or Supreme Court's order or Supreme Court's judgment, such and such thing was said, because if right to liberty, to life and liberty has been written under Article 21 of the Constitution. Initially, the confinements or the boundaries of this right was very confined, but with the Supreme Court judgments it has become very broader. Now, everything which infringes with the good living a human being deserves comes under life and liberty. Even if several people are playing music, loud music in your area after 10 o'clock, they are infringing your right to life and liberty. Right to life does not mean just raw living, it means living with dignity. Okay. So, we have to understand that Supreme Court plays a very important role in interpreting all these rights, also the directive principles, and these interpretation have made them broader. Right to privacy also comes under life and liberty. Recently, the Supreme Court judgment came on these bonds, unanimous bonds, and they were infringing the right to information. Now, right to information is nowhere mentioned in the Constitution, but it is a right under right to freedom. So, it is important to understand the role of the Supreme Court when it comes to the interpretation of the Constitution. So, let us see these things one by one. What does the preamble holds inside it? How is it the identity card, and what are these sources of power and other things? So, when we say source of power, so the Constitution, if you the preamble, if you look, starts with the wordings "we the people." Start with the word "we the people," hereby solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, democratic republic, all those things are the nature of the state. But the basic thing is we the people. So, who are the sovereign power here? Who are the source of power here? Is the power in the constitution coming from any king, or is it coming from parliament? If it would be coming from parliament, like in Britain, the parliament is sovereign. But that is a country which does not have the written constitution. When a country doesn't have any written constitution, somebody has to be sovereign. It was a very long lasting culture in England, where they have the democratic society, and the society was more homogeneous, not heterogeneous, and it was a society where there were no very less distinction based on religion or caste, like we see in our country or were seen in the United States, which has also adopted a written constitution. So, in such a country, a non-written constitution is okay, but in a country like ours, where we have so much of diversity, a written constitution is must, so that all the classes and creeds are included and they are not left behind from the mainstream development. So, we have a written constitution, and the preamble says we the people. So, the people are the source of the constitution, the source of power of the constitution. We the people have solemnly resolved to constitute India into sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and we give to all our citizens what? The core constitutional values of liberty, equality, fraternity, justice. And on this 26th day of November, what do? To adopt, enact and give to ourselves. Now, see these, we do all these things, things are written here, and at the last line says on this 26th day of November, we adopt, enact and give to ourselves. So, we are, when I say we, it means the people. We the people have made this constitution. We the people are the source of power of the constitution. We the people are the sovereign authority of the constitution, and we adopt it, we enact it, means we pass it as a law, and we give it to ourselves. Although it was passed by the Constituent Assembly, but the Constitutional Assembly is meant to be the representative of the people. So, if we see, it is always the people who have the sovereign power, it is always the people who are the source of power, and it is always the people who has adopted, enacted and given to themselves. They have given to themselves the constitution. The source of power of Indian constitution are nothing but the people of India. So, I hope this point is very much clear. Now, let us come to the second point, which is the nature of the state. Nature of the state. Sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, republic. This is the nature of the Indian state, the nature of state. Again, when I use the word state, state does not mean the state of Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, number of states we have in India. When it's a political concept, when we say state, it means a country or a nation. So, nature of state means Indian state, means the nation, Bharat, India. Okay. So, what is the nature of state in India? This is sovereign. It it is socialist, secular, it is democratic, and it is republic. What do we understand by the word sovereign? It simply means the ability of a country to conduct its own business without any external pressure. There is no external pressure on India by any other country, by any other international forum or any international organization to conduct our business. When we pass any law in the parliament, we are passing it without any pressure or without any fear from outside. That is called sovereignty, that you are free to take your own decisions in whichever way, shape or form you want to. Now, it is our goodness that we are keeping it more liberal, social and politically democratic, but somebody else must not come from outside and tell us what needs to be done. India wasn't a sovereign country till 1947 when it got its independence. We were under the yoke of the foreign rule, and any law which was passed during that time, let it be the 1935 law, the Act of 1935 or the 1919 or the 1909 Act, they were the gift of the British Parliament to the Indian people. The Council Acts, the Regulating Acts, the Government of India Acts, each of them have given some or the other little bit of, somewhere they will increase the members in the council, Indian members in the council, somewhere they will give a little bit of liberty, transferred subjects and reserved subjects. The transferred subjects were given to Indians to be legislated upon, but those were all the gift of the British Parliament to India. Here the concept have changed. What was the concept? We are making our own constitution. We are not inviting or we are not asking for help from any foreign country, including Britain, to help us in making the constitution. We have made our own constitution. All the representatives in that constituent assembly were Indians. Why? Because now we are not under any foreign pressure or any foreign rule, and we are independent people and we have the sovereignty. Sovereignty means we have the independence of making our own constitution, framing our own laws. And when a country has such a power, it can make any law it desires. Now, when I say any law it desires, doesn't mean you pass a law which says that any time some other country or some other leader says something bad about us, we are going to put a nuclear bomb on their head. No. That's not the thing. That's not the nature of Indian state. That's not what has been mentioned in the core constitutional values in India. We are a friendly state. We always want friendly relation with our neighbors. We always want friendly relation with our distant neighbors and a friendly relation with the far off countries. That's why we go on becoming the member of bigger organizations everywhere to maintain that core constitutional value of brotherhood. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, we say, the whole country is one family. So, to maintain those core constitutional values we are not an aggressor state or an expanding state. We also respect the sovereignty of our neighbor states. If tomorrow our army goes into Bhutan or to Nepal or to Sri Lanka or wherever, it takes over that territory, I think there would be minimum opposition from those countries, because they do not have the strength to fight India. But has India done any of such infringement of their sovereignty in so many years, in so many decades? India has never done that. Why? Because we understand what sovereignty is. In the same manner, we also respect the sovereignty of other countries. So, this sovereignty concept is very important concept. If you see the internal sovereignty, who are sovereign power in India? It is the people of India. But when we talk about the sovereignty of the state, It means that we are free to take our own decisions. So, for example, just after we got independent and the then Prime Minister Honorable Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru wanted India to become the member of the British Commonwealth. There was a huge hue and cry in the country that just now we have came out of the British rule, the yoke of the British rule was thrown away by the freedom struggle, and again you are saying that let us become the part of the British Commonwealth. So, his logic was that India had a deep relationship with Britain and its people, and severing it or separating India from Britain is not reasonable, it is not logical, it does not make sense, because with Britain we can do great business in future. So many values which we have taken from Britain is of work to us, and when we are becoming the member of the British Commonwealth, we are doing it on our own will, and we can terminate our membership on our own will. Now, that is called sovereignty, that we are taking our own decision, not because some king have told us to become the member, or the Prime Minister of Britain has told us that it will be good for you, or they are pressurizing us to become the member. No, India is becoming the member of the Commonwealth, and it is the decision of India, and this decision has been taken at its own will, and we have the ability to terminate the membership also. And from decades we have seen that India is the important member of the Commonwealth. If you see population wise, India is 60% of the Commonwealth, and we have maintained great relationship with Britain and all the other Commonwealth countries in so many years. So, that turned out to be a great decision. But do you really think that it was anywhere attack on Indian sovereignty? No, it was not. Becoming the member of the British Commonwealth was not an attack on Indian sovereignty. On the other hand, India have turned the British Commonwealth as the Commonwealth of Nation. See, this is one of the major contribution of India, one of the contribution in which India played a very important role, that British Commonwealth is now known as the Commonwealth of Nations. So, this is what India has done over a period of time, by taking decisions in such a way that our external interest or internal interest or the interest of the country is not hurt, and at the same time our sovereignty is also not hurt. So, I hope you understand the meaning of sovereignty. To take another example, Indian army was invited in Sri Lanka to fight against the Tamilalam, the Tamil terrorists as they call it. So, was it the infringement of the sovereignty of Sri Lanka? No, it was not, because the government of Sri Lanka is calling us. We are not just entering somebody else's territory without their permission. Few days back, Iran has attacked some of the parts of Pakistan, the Baluch area. Was it the infringement of the sovereignty of Pakistan? Yes, it was, because Pakistan government did not want, neither it has invited Iran to do so. In retaliation, Pakistan also infringed the territory and the sovereignty of Iran. So, these things you have to keep it in your mind very clearly, that what is the infringement of sovereignty and what is not. In Abbottabad, the terrorist Osama bin Laden was killed by America. When the American planes entered Abbottabad or the Pakistani territory, Pakistanis were not able to know it in initial time of 10 to 15 minutes. Till that time they have already done their work and were their way back to home. Was this the infringement of the sovereignty of Pakistan? Yes, it was, but some people say that was needed. what is needed and what is not needed is a debatable topic, and that is not the topic of our discussion here, but we have to understand what sovereignty means. Even if it is economic pressure made by some country, for example, a country gets grant from another big rich country, and then the bigger richer country says that we will give you particular grant for food or for water or for electricity, for whatever, only if you make such and such of law. Is this the infringement of the sovereignty? Yes, it is. Although not physically a bigger country is not pressurizing the smaller country, but by intangible means, by economic means. That is also the infringement of sovereignty of a nation, that you are pressurizing, some external pressure is there on a country to act in a particular manner. So, Indian state has maintained its sovereignty from a long time and is still maintaining it. Now, let us come to the second concept, which is socialist. It simply means a welfare state. This word was added by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act to make it make the concept which was implicit to make it explicit. The same thing was done with the word secular. India has been a secular country from a long time, but the word secular was also added in the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act into the preamble, just to make the implicit quality of our country explicit, to make everybody understand that India is a secular state, India is a socialist state. So, how does this thing work? What does this socialism, or it just means welfare state. One of the basic duty of a welfare state is to remove inequality. Removal of inequality is socialism. Very simple. What kind of inequality do we have in our country? Do we have social inequality? Do we have economic inequality? Do we have political inequality? Let us start with political equality. What is political equality? It means that one vote is equal to one man. The value of a vote of a rich man is not more than the value of the vote of a poor man. Whether you are poor, whether you are of whichever religion or caste or creed or gender, your vote contains the same value. This right has been given by the Constitution to the Indian people when the Constitution was adopted. So, we do have political democracy in our country, political equality in our country, but when it comes to social equality, do you really think we are socially equal in our country? The idea of caste divisions in our country, division based on religions, are very old. The practice of untouchability was an example of it. Through several fundamental rights which are mentioned under part 3rd of the Constitution tries to make India into a more socially democratic state, to remove the inequality in the society. If you see Article 14, it is a broad article which says about right to equality given to all the citizens. Article 15 and Article 16 mention several grounds such as religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, descent, place of origin, all these things. Nobody must be discriminated by the state on all these things: religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth. Then Article 17 removes untouchability and makes it an offense. What is happening here? Now, you also see Article 39, Directive Principle of State Policy, just and humane behavior for both the sexes, both the genders at the workplace, equal pay for equal work. What we are going to do? We are trying to remove the inequality prevalent in our country. Let's say a woman is working and a man is working, and man is getting higher pay for the same work. This is inequality. A higher class person is getting more money for the same work which the lower class person is doing. It is also inequality. Also, we see because several sections in India were socially and educationally deprived, they were backward. So, there are also provisions in our country to make them more equal to the rest of the people, the affirmative actions as we call them. So, in jobs, in appointments, in educational institutions, so many rights have been given to the downtrodden, to the tribal people, to the socially backward people. And why are we trying to do it? We are trying to do it just because we are a welfare state. We are a socialist state, and it is the core constitutional value, and we have to remove inequality in our society. It needs to be removed, or there is no meaning of political equality. Think of a situation where a person is so much deprived socially that it does not have any dignity, cannot go to bath on ghats, or does not holds the same respect which the other person holds, or women in our country are suffering just because the man does not want them to be equal or does not respect them. What is the meaning of going and voting? For whom or for what we are voting? To make a government who starts doing the same thing all over again, not bringing any change. So, the political equality or the political democracy, one vote for one man and all this thing, it only makes sense when you have social equality, when you have the social democracy in your country. It is a very important concept, social democracy, and the constitution tries to bring it by mentioning it in the fundamental rights and the directive principles of the state policy. Directive principles are those values or those directives which the state, which the parliament should keep in mind while making any law. So, equal pay for equal work is one of the concept of the directive principle. It should be in the mind when making law, that there shall not be any distinction. The third kind of inequality is the economic inequality. So, what is economic equality? When there is no distinction of income. So, on the basis of income, standard of living, opportunity, status, these are the concepts covered in economic inequality, where you have huge differences in income. One person, if they work for 1 hour, they make millions. There are other people who work for 10, 12 hours in a day and just get peanut. What is the meaning of such a state when half of the people are suffering for bread and because of inflation and other things? They cannot pay the bill of their children in the educational institution, they cannot pay the bill of the health problems. What is the meaning of a state? What is the meaning of removal of social inequality, and what is the meaning of having political equality when you are so much suffering because you cannot earn properly, because the distribution of the resources and the distributions of the earnings have not been done properly. Now, that concept does not mean that you start snatching from the wealthy and start to give it to the people. We are a socialist state, but we are not a Robin Hood state. We have to understand. India is a socialist state. This is the nature of the Indian constitution. But it is not a Robin Hood state. Not a Robin Hood. So we do want our businesses to grow. But whatever we are getting out of those businesses, the profits must be distributed equally. That means whoever is sharing in those profits, if you have a factory, see the contribution in a factory. If workers are working, they contribute the maximum. These are the workers. We are talking about the workers. Then there is this middle management and there is this top management. But the maximum work has been done by the workers in the middle management, top management. Now let us consider the salaries. Look at the salaries. What's happening? Top management, middle management, and only some little leftover are given to workers. Do you really think this model is good? And do you really think political and social equality matters to people when they have been paid this much? And the top management, few people get this big package. So your ability to make decision and your ability to do complex work which the top management does must be rewarded, because you become and you come into the top management only after so much of hard work, so much of mental pressure, so much of education which you have done and you have gone through, and the experience you have to take. But that does not mean you have been paid all the money in the world, and those workers who have been working are paid in your comparison not even 1%. That's not the society, that's unequal society. That is what we say, that the poor are getting poorer and the richer are getting richer. That's where we say that the divide between the poor and the rich is increasing. So the socialist state tries to eliminate that kind of inequality also, and that will be eliminated when we have economic equality, and that economic equality will come when there will be less inequality in income, less and less inequality in the standard of living, in opportunity and in status. See this standard of living: Rajiv Awas Yojana, Indira Awas Yojana, Ladli Lakshmi Yojana. We have gas cylinders being supplied to women so that their eyes and breath are, they were suffering because of the fog and other things. So smoke, sorry. So these are the examples, those government schemes are the examples of welfare state, where we are trying to pull up the lower sections by different social and economic tools which we have, just to maintain the economic equality, so that the social and political equality makes some sense. It is very important to understand for us. Even in the core constitutional value, this is the nature of state. Even in the core constitutional value, here we will study justice, social, economic and political. It is the same thing. So that's why India is called as the socialist state, because it's a welfare state and it tries to eliminate inequality in all the spheres: political, social and economic. I hope you understood this concept. Now let us come to another concept: secularism. India is a secular state, and this has also been added by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. secular. What does this word means? Added by 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976 inserted. So again, implicit concept was made explicit. We were already secular, but just to show to the world, to show to our own people, to show to the parliamentarians, to show to the executives, to show to the judges in the Supreme Court and the law officers in the Supreme Court, the lawyers in the Supreme Court, and everywhere, to show them also to the people, so that they understand their duty to be more secular. This word was made explicit by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. What does this word means? That India does not have any official religion. That means India is secular, not a theocracy. Does not have any official religion, no official religion. Another thing, the protection is provided by the state to all the religion. Protects all religion. The state of India protects all religion. There is where the distinction comes between the Western secularism and Indian secularism. In West, when they say secularism, it simply means they have nothing to do with religion. The state has nothing to do with religion. Although, you see, when the President of the United States take their oath, they keep their hand on Bible. But it's okay, it's a secular state. Something you need, some good thing. Bible is a very good source on which you can just take your oath by keeping it in mind that I will abide by law. If not by God, at least I will abide by law. So in India, and Indian secularism says that state is very well involved in religion, although it protects all the religion, not one single religion. It promotes all the religion, not one single religion. So it promotes and protects all the religion, whether it be Hinduism, whether it be Sikhism, whether it be Islam, whether it be Jainism, whether it be Buddhism. Provisions have been there, minority religions have been made. They also are promoted by the state. One more thing, that religion should not be the ground for discrimination. Religion is not a ground for discrimination. If you see Article 14, 15 and 16, 14 is a broader concept of a right to equality, and Article 15 and Article 16 specifically mentions religion as one of the ground on which state must not discriminate the citizens of the country. So Article 15 and 16 particularizes Article 14 by giving the grounds that religion is not the basis for any kind of discrimination by the state. That state is trying to promote, or rather state is trying to give jobs or admissions in the educational institutes to only one religion or two religion and discriminating against the other religion. That will be hurting the secular character of the country, and the government has to pay attention to it. So the concept of constitutionalism again comes up. So this is what secularism means in India, that we are not a theocracy, we are a secular state because we do not have any official religion. It is not the Islamic state of India or the Hindu state of India or the Sikh state of India. And this is one of the great achievements India have, because if you see all our neighbors, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Bhutan, Nepal, some of them are Buddhist states, some of them are Islamic states, some of them are Hindu states, but India is a secular state. This is one of the greatest achievement in India. So, hope you understand the word secular and why it has been added and what all it holds. It holds these concepts. Religion is protected, all religions are protected equally. Religion is not the ground on which states should discriminate. Also, the right to worship and the right to profess, propagate and practice any religion is given under Article 25 to 28 in the Indian Constitution. You can profess, propagate and practice any religion of your choice in India. So, this is what secularism means in India. Now, let us go to another concept, which is democratic. What does democratic means? India has parliamentary democracy. There can be other kind of democracies as well, but India has parliamentary democracy. Other is presidential form of government, parliamentary democracy. So, how does this thing work? This works on the principle of separation of power. This works on the principle of cooperation and coordination. And there is a simple difference in both these forms of democracy. It is the people who elect their leaders. It is always the people who are electing their leaders. Let us see the presidential election in the United States. Who vote? It is the people. The parliamentary democracy in India. Ultimately, who are the voters? We have already learned the concept of political democracy. We have already learned the concept of political equality, where one vote equals one man. If Mr. Ambani is coming and voting and I am going and voting, the value of that vote is same. If a lower caste person is voting, a tribal person is voting and a higher caste Brahmin is voting, the value of that vote is same. Similarly, the king of Jaipur is voting, or the king of Udaipur is voting, or somewhere of Travancore or of Madurai is voting, and a common person from the same state is voting, the value of that vote is same. So, when we have that kind of facility available, all the people in the country vote to make their government, which becomes the member of parliament. The biggest party in the parliament forms the government. They come up as the council of ministers, and the person who heads this council of ministers becomes the prime minister of the country. This parliament, along with the legislature of the state, elects the president. So, in a way, it is the people who are electing the president of the country. The head of the state is the president, and who are electing? It is the people of the country who are electing it. So, this is called the democratic process. There is where the head of the state is not, is also the concept of republic will come here. The head of the state is not a hereditary person, is not a person from any religion, but is the head of the state, which is very much secular and sovereign, and it is done by the will of people. Democracy is also of several kinds. The basic of them are the social democracy, economic democracy and political democracy. So, we have already talked about political democracy, one vote equal to one man. We have a adult suffrage, the electoral rolls, which contains the name of all the eligible people who can vote in the elections. Two important conditions are that they must be the citizen of India. This is the basic condition everywhere. If the person from UK or US coming and voting in Indian election, or we are going and voting in their election, doesn't make sense. So, in that adult suffrage, whoever is 18-year-old, this age has been reduced to 18. Earlier it was 21 by the 69th Constitutional Amendment Act in 1989. This was reduced to 18 years. So, whoever is 18-year-old and is the citizen of India can go and vote. This tells about the political democracy we have. Again, the economic democracy will only come when we have the equality of income, opportunity, standards of living. And the social democracy, as we have discussed, several fundamental rights, several directive principle have already provided it, but it has still to come to our minds, come from our hearts, that we need to be a socially democratic country. Republic, very simple, the head of the state, even in the Indian states such as MP, UP, Rajasthan, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, we have governors. They play dual role. They are the representative of the central governments in the states, but at the same time these governors are also the head of the states, constitutional heads. It is a constitutional post. Similarly, president's post is also a constitutional post. So, India is very much a republic. So, this is what we mean by the nature of the state, that it is sovereign, it is socialist, it is secular, it is democratic, and it is republic. We can make our own laws without being pressurized by any external force. We are a welfare state. We do not have any official religion of the state. In our country, it is the people who choose their elected representative, and the head of the state in India is a president who is an elected head. That simply means India is republic. I hope you understand the nature of the state in India. The next thing, let us start with the core constitutional values. Core constitutional values in India. Justice, social, economic and political justice. What is this? Social, economic and political. Again, if there is any kind of inequality prevalent in India, see, justice, the basic concept is, if there is no inequality, everything is just. The concept of justice only comes where there is inequality. If you have not been given your birthful right or human right, or you have been snatched from your property has been snatched from you, or anything must whichever thing which has been done to you, if it is not according to law, if it is not according to the core human values, and if it is not according to the core constitutional values, then it is what? Injustice. To ensure justice in our country, the courts are being established. They are the conscience keepers of the constitution. They are the upholders of the fundamental rights in the country. They are the institution which provide justice to people. If something wrong has been done to you, you can reach the Supreme Court. If your fundamental right is abridged, under Article 32 you can reach the Supreme Court, and under Article 226 you can reach the High Courts. And what will they do? They will ensure that justice is beholded. What kind of justice? Social justice, economic justice, and political justice. If your name has not been added in the electoral roll based on religion, based on caste, based on sex, based on whatever, that simply means your political right to vote has been taken away. You can very well approach court and file a suit against the state for addition of your name in the electoral roll. That will ensure the political justice in the country. If the government is not paying you, if you are a beneficiary of a scheme and you are not getting the benefit out of this scheme because the government has came up with some funny idea. I will tell you one, the gas cylinders. The gas cylinders, and people used to get these gas cylinders on subsidized rate in India. Still the subsidy works. Government came up with an idea that the first cylinder, one cylinder in a month will be subsidized, not the second one. And if you are living in the same in the same residence, that means your address is same. Let's say it is somewhere, let's say Jawahar Road, house number 1. If you are living here, one cylinder will be given to you in a month, which will be subsidized. But let's say if you are living in a joint family and you require 2 cylinders, and to get the second cylinder you have to pay the full price, not the subsidized price. This was the case which went to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court says that if some family is a joint family, they are showing the values of brotherhood and love. The state must not make laws in such a way that the subsidy or the rights of these people are infringed, or the subsidy is being taken away from them. So, why I am giving you this example? Just to show that how courts uphold the justice, all kind of justices, social justice, economic justice, political justice in the country. So, the core constitutional value in India is one of them, the first one of them, which is mentioned in the preamble, is justice, social, economic and political. Second is liberty. What kind of liberty has been given to the people, to the citizens? Liberty of thought, liberty of expression, liberty of belief, liberty of faith and liberty of worship. Now again the concept of secularism comes here. Belief, faith and worship. You have the liberty to profess, propagate and practice any religion you want. You can have faith on nature, or you can have faith on stone, or you can have faith on a wall, or you cannot have, you don't want to have faith on anything, you can be atheist. Go on and live your life in whichever way you want. You have the right to believe, faith and worship. Also the fundamental right covered under article 25 to 28 gives you the freedom of religion. You can profess, propagate and practice any religion of your choice. Has to be done in limitation. It doesn't mean that in order to propagate or profess your religion, you start hurting another religion. All the concept of ghar wapsi and everything which you were watching on the news is the example of this. The forceful conversion from one religion to another religion is prohibited in India. So, when it comes to liberty, we have the liberty of belief, faith and worship. Also we have the liberty of thought and expression. This is the basic fundamental feature which allows the human being to reach to its optimum potential. Under Article 19, several freedoms have been mentioned. These freedom help the individuals, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, they help the Indian people to reach to their optimum potential. Also, you have the freedom of association or forming assemblies. That is very important right which has been given to you. They fulfill the democratic character of the country. If you cannot form associations, how will you form political parties or social groups or pressure groups? If you cannot assemble peacefully in some ground in Delhi, how can India against corruption movement have happened? So, these rights are very important given to the Indian citizen. How will you express? Express does not only mean by speaking, also by writing an article in the newspaper. There was a very great example that the army in the northeast was, what they were doing is the newspaper, they had the regulation on what was printed in the newspaper. And the newspaper have came up with an idea that for few days it left the editorial section blank. They have left the editorial section blank just to tell to the people and to all the peoples in the country, also to the government, also to the army, that we are expressing our anger with you. You are not allowing us to print and write what we want. That is our right as newspaper, as a person of the media to express. So, this is also a medium of expression. See how creative medium of expression, where they came up with the idea that we are going to leave this section blank, and it has sent very, very powerful message. So, expression can be of many types, by speaking, by writing, by drawing. These cartoons which come up in the newspapers, the comedy, satirical comedy, satirical cartoons, these are also the way you express. You cannot express until you have the freedom of thought. Somebody cannot put a bar on your thinking. So, all these basic, very basic human values for the human being to grow have been mentioned in the Constitution of India. Under liberty, you have the liberty of thought, of expression, of belief, faith and worship. If you compare the preamble of India, Indian Constitution with the preamble of the Constitution of Australia or Canada or the United States, they do not have such elaborate terminologies of words or values mentioned. The preamble of the United States talks about tranquility, it talks about justice, it talks about liberty, it talks about the common defense of the country, US being a welfare state and making the union more stronger. It does not mention about equality. Why? Because when the Constitution was framed, it was not an equal society. The rights were between the blacks and there was a huge bridge between the blacks and the whites. Slavery was prevalent. The local native people were not given rights. Although today, and with several amendments and with several Supreme Court judgment, equality is the very core constitutional value of the United States Constitution. But it was not when in 1776 when the Constitution was framed. But the idea is that in few lines in one paragraph their preamble ends, but the Indian preamble is quite elaborate, talks about justice, liberty, and it mentions on what ground you are going to get, what kind of liberty you are going to get. Equality. What is equality? And what kind of equality is mentioned? The equality of status and opportunity. Think of a situation where you pass the civil services examination and you are just not given respect because you are a woman or you belong to a Dalit caste, or you are downtrodden, or you are a tribal person, or anything like this. even when you have become the collector of a district or the secretary of one department, such thing comes up. So, think about people who are simple people, who does not know how to read and write, who does the labor work. Are they not human beings? They are as much human being as we are, and those are the people who have been socially and historically being subjugated to discrimination. In such a scenario, equality needs to be ensured. So, the equality of status is also ensured in the constitution. Through several articles, if we see article 14, 15 and 16, they gets repeated again and again because it ensures equality. Article 17, removal of untouchability and making it as a offense, a criminal offense, tells about this. Opportunity, article 15 and 16, admission in educational institutions. Government, which is the model employer, it cannot discriminate on the basis of religion, race, caste, sex and other things when they are giving jobs. Article 16 also gives an exception that some affirmative action can also be made in favor of socially and educationally backward people, scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. There is that is the basic article from where the concept of reservation comes up. Even the economically weaker sections are given reservation, so that we give opportunity to all the people. The people, because of anything, whether it be sex, whether it be caste, whether it be religion, or whether it be economic factors, must also be brought into the mainstream, and for that it is very important to provide them reservation that will ensure equality, that will be equal to the socialist state, a welfare state which reflects the nature of the Indian state. So, equality of status and opportunity. And fraternity, what is this? Fraternity is the basic brotherhood, the sense of brotherhood which we have, the idea of unity and oneness among the people. We all are nothing but the son of the same soil. Until you have that kind of feeling within you, do you really think there can be equality, liberty or justice in this country? People will be fighting with one another based on religion, race and caste and so many factions and sections which we have. So, the value of fraternity, the value of tranquility becomes very important in the constitution. Value of brotherhood. So, by fraternity we mean the dignity of the individual. Why fraternity? To maintain the dignity of the individual. And how can this be maintained? By having justice, social, economic and political. By having democracy, social democracy, political democracy, economic democracy. By being secular, by being socialist. Then we are going to have dignity of the individual, and also the unity and integrity of the nation. This word has also, this phrase has also been added by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1976, because it was very important to tell to the Indian people that it is your fundamental duty to maintain the dignity of the individual and also the unity and integrity of the nation. How the unity and integrity of the nation is hurt? When two sections starts to fight, when two religions starts to fight, when there is a huge divide between male and female, when one region starts to go against another region, how will you ensure unity of the country? There are fights between two states on water division or the diversion of water, the river water or the canal water from one place to the other place. So, a unanimous decision needs to be taken in these situations, and for that the basic idea of brotherhood has to be there. Then only you can respect the dignity of an individual, that whatever may be his or her religion, whatever may be his or her caste does not matter, from which place they belong does not matter. We respect them because we are the people of the same country. We are brothers. That is what brotherhood means, and that is what fraternity means here. That will ensure the unity and integrity of the country. So, these are the core constitutional values which have been mentioned in the preamble. Also, I have mentioned the fifth one, the duty. To maintain the unity and integrity of the nation is the fundamental duty of the Indian citizen. To maintain the secular character of the Indian Constitution, it is the fundamental duty of the citizen. So, I hope we have covered this in length, and you will be able to answer any question now on preamble. If any question on preamble is asked, it was also important to understand the terminology such as fraternity, equality, liberty, and the inner concept which has been provided here. In order to understand the fundamental rights, in order to understand the directive principles and other important values which are there in the Constitution, and in order to clear this examination, Indian polity, it has a great area from where the questions are coming. If you see the prelims examination, 10 to 15 questions are coming from prelims, in prelims from polity. In mains examination also it is a very important topic. Also, if you are giving interview, you are supposed to know the core constitutional values and how they apply to the Indian Constitution. Everything in Indian Constitution, whichever section or whichever article you see, has some or the other link, whether it be the special status given to some state, or the rules and regulations made for the provisions made for the administration of scheduled areas, tribal areas, or whether it be the section on election commission, constitutional body, non-constitutional bodies, fundamental right, duties, everything is linked to preamble. So, to understand Indian polity, you need to understand the preamble in depth. I think this is it from my side today, and thank you very much for being part of this live class. We will have our live class, we will tell you this is a series of live class we are going to have, and the next one, the date and the timing of next one you will